try as I might, I cannot get cat hair off of anything in this whole house. You can see it on me. Anyway, everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about a game called Final Fantasy IV, released in Japan. Final Fantasy II when it came over to America. And the reason why we're going to talk about it is because it's, well, for me personally, it's nostalgic. It's going to be talking about some of the core stories that built, I guess, the person you see in front of you. And it has this really interesting character named Rydia built into the story. So the game goes something like this. You're a Dark Knight, you are told to use dark powers by your king, and then you had killing a town, and then you want to renounce your dark powers, and you figure out the king is doing wrong things and murdering a whole bunch of other people and cities just for the crystal powers to resurrect this Tower of Babel. It's literally called that in the game. To summon a giant to wreck the world, and all this is done by a guy named Golbez, who had the king under control, but turns out another guy's controlling him, who's on the moon. So you go from like the sword fantasy thing to like in a spaceship and up to the moon. And then you figure out that you're actually like half Lunarian. But that's the bigger scope. Okay, we're going to zoom in a little bit and go to the smaller scope, because I want to focus on this character, Rydia. Whenever I talk about Rydia, my 6-year-old gets really hyped. She likes to hear stories about Rydia, and I can just make them up. So, that Dark Knight we were talking about, his name was Cecil. And what Cecil does is he's told by his king, he's this big because he's like a 16-bit character. The game opens up where you are Cecil, and you are a pilot captain of the Red Wings. You are in this world of like Dungeons and Dragons and ships and swords, you pilot a literal boat that flies in the sky. And you are the only country that has this, so you have obviously a vast superior firepower compared to everybody else. And you go around to these cities and you steal their crystals, which are like their source of power, magical power, something like that. So he says to the king, when he brings back a crystal after I think like murdering some of the mages, he's like, I don't feel right about this, why do we have to do it? And then so the king demotes him instantly and says, take this package to the village in Mizdia, and the village in the mist. So you do this, you end up going around the country, you go through a cave. It's a misty cave, and the mist is really thick, and eventually when you get out of the cave, when you're about to get out of the cave, the mist forms together to a dragon. You fight a dragon of mist. You defeat it, and then you go to the town. When you go to the town, the package opens itself, and it turns out to be a bomb that raises the town, because everybody in that town has the power to summon monsters. Now what you find out is you meet this girl, little girl, Rydia, who's crying. She's crying because her mother's died. Her mother died because her mother could summon dragons, but if you summon a dragon and it dies, you die too. And I'm like, that's so interesting. Especially when you deal with like the chaotic element. Like in the movie Sleeping Beauty. The dragon and the beauty are the same character, as far as the masculine's concerned. Because the feminine in general is supposed to be something you have to conquer and control, but she's also intimidating. She's intimidating equal to the amount, or I guess level of beauty she has. That's how intimidating she is, and if you're a woman watching this, maybe you don't understand that at all, but that's just something that men have to grasp. And sometimes you could desensitize yourself to that. Sometimes. But not all the time, and it's still like little butterflies in your chest. You have to fight this. Obviously, when you're married and stuff, you don't have to worry about fighting dragons. At least not in the same way. Rather, you're trying to repel them, or trying to tell yourself not to go after the dragon because you know the beauty's beneath. You already have your set in marriage, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. So the little girl's crying, and so Cecil, he's with his friend Kane, who's a dragoon. He can literally jump into the sky and then like slam his spear onto enemies. Cecil's like, you need to come with us. This place is dangerous. And she is like, no. And she screams no so loud, she summons a titan and makes an earthquake happen. And like seals off the left side of this town. So you take this girl with you. She is unconscious when you wake up after the earthquake. Kane is gone. So you haul her with you, and eventually you get to a town in the middle of a desert, and you talk to her. She doesn't talk back. He says, I'm just trying to help you. A couple guards come from Barren Town, which is your hometown, and they try to take Rydia from you. You solo 5 guys, and she watches this happen. And so, as a payment for watching that happen, she gives Cecil her name. It's like, my name is Rydia. Now, in this whole game, there's not very much text. I mean, there is, but there's not at the same time. Like modern days, we have video acting and stuff like that. So you get a lot of inflections from the story and the little bit of text that they do give you. I guess text in the sense like it's not a book written, but these are kind of interactive books. You have to do something in order to progress the storyline, and the story is the reward in these games, which is just so fascinating. You get rewarded by story rather than, monetary stuff. And these stories actually hit you hard, because They call out to the very thing that's etched on you, which is the hero story. So Rydia follows you through your adventures. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get help from other places that still have crystals left, and that might help you take back Baron. Because the king is just out of control. He's taken over everything. Maybe just because he has the airships at the point of the game, you don't know. So there's another point later when you're on a ship with, I think it's the Kingdom of Fabul, like these unarmed fighters. And you're trying to take the ship down toward Baron Castle. And what happens is a whirlpool shows up, swirls around, and knocks your ship off. And turns out like Leviathan, this giant sea monster, comes up. Rydia's thrown off the boat, and you don't see her. She's gone. So then you end up in this town of magic, and they send you on a quest to basically turn your dark power, which the king told you to get and you don't want, and you confront yourself and you turn it into power of light, because now instead of means to an end, you're doing it for power. Now you're reaching for something greater. And it turns out if you reach for something greater and the transcendent, because what Cecil does is he wants to become a paladin. He wants to seek after light instead of darkness, because darkness cannot defeat darkness. It's all chaos. Only truth and light on the right path can properly defeat chaos, because it turns chaos into something that's organized, puts order into the chaos. And that's all replete in this game, which I think is just fascinating. So, back to Rydia. Later on, you go up and down. You actually go into the depths of the earth. You're looking for these crystals. There's other crystals that are beneath the earth. While you're down there, your ship crashes, because at this point you got an airship, and you meet the dwarves. And this is very, very much fast-forwarding the story. And Yang is with you, and he's like, I hear someone sneaking around in the castle. And the Dwarf King is like, open up the vault. And so you go back there, you fight all these like little mummy demon things, these puppets. And then Golbez shows up, paralyzes all your team, and summons a dragon. The dragon starts eating your team members one by one, save Cecil for last. And then Rydia shows up again. But she's not a little girl anymore. Before she was like 8, 9. Now she's like a teenager. And she has massive black magic. And she can summon everything. After she gets you out, she cures your paralysis, helps you get up, and helps you defeat Golbez and the Shadow Dragon. I mean, it is a crazy moment. I was blown away. I thought I'd never see her again. Like, really, when I first played that game. So you push Golbez away, and the Shadow Dragon's gone. And then you have a conversation with her after everyone's kind of up and at 'em. After the crystals are, still on this quest. She says, I lost my ability to use white magic, but I can use black magic and I can summon more creatures. And I'm like, holy hell, that is a heck of a lesson for life. She was through so much trauma. She had her village destroyed. She lost her mom, and who knows where her dad was. She got thrown overboard, devoured by a literal leviathan. If you can survive that, how much have you aged and matured? So that's exactly what happens to him. She makes not excuse, but she gives the explanation. Time works different when you're in the realm of the monsters. I'm like, wow, that's also something to think about. When you're in the realm of the monsters and the chaos, you're like infinitely destroyed, but you also can learn infinite things. Like the chaos, the monsters realm offers bounty, but it's also terrible. And she, even besides the monster realm, which I think what she said is true, time travels differently when you're in pain, and when you're in conflict, and when your identity is constantly being destroyed. Sometimes hell can seem like an infinitum. You're at a job you don't like, and you know that your boss hates you. Every day is pretty long, as opposed to you actually being busy with your work and not having that kind of uncertainty in relationship being thrust upon you. And that's all right there. That's all in a game that I played when I was like 11. The concept that trauma and being through adversity, and then what does she do? She sees someone who needs help, a friend she knew long ago, and she helps him. That's the best thing you can do if you're depressed and been through chaos. If you want to get a sense of order in your life and what to do, you find someone that needs help, even though you've been through a lot, and you use what you've learned through your trauma, which is exactly what she does. The dark magic that she has, but she uses it properly. She doesn't use it to gain power. She uses it to protect. I mean, that's the hero right there. So this template of a little girl then went through a whole lot of stuff that basically changed her very character. It's probably one of the first models of a heroine character that I ever experienced. And this stuff hits you in the heart sometimes. At least it does me. I mean, I can talk about it for a while, but if I talk about it too long, just like if I talk about the old Dragonlance books and stuff, there's some core things in there that are just, they will hit you. And they'll call out to you, and they'll tell you this is worthy of doing. even though it's fantasy. So what does that say about what's etched on your very being? What is it about that is calling out to you? And what is the best version of that, in truth and reality, that has ever called out to you? Well, it's hard to get away from the biblical element here, especially when it comes to Christ. Because that is exactly what happened with his story as well. Especially in his temptations, when he was promised a lot of things. And he said no, because this is not the way things should be. Promised power, promised food, promised indestructibility when he was tempted in the desert. And he said no, because he had to subject himself to something higher. Rydia does the same thing. She has all this power that she gained by maturing faster than like everybody else. And she had legitimate talent. But she used it for something greater than herself. And that's the hero. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, play Final Fantasy 2. It's pretty awesome. Get a Super Nintendo emulator. Give it a whirl. I have one on my gaming channel. If you click on the top right of my banner. Did a whole playthrough on the game. Slight commentary. I mostly do this kind of stuff for my kids. They like watching me play these games while they do other things in the background. At least I can give them permission to do that. Because sometimes the stuff on Netflix, etc., if I can't trust it to autoplay, then I say, you just watch something on my channel, honey. I'm sorry. I mean, that's how things are. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Take care.